You know that I love to bring you some very smart people much smarter than me, to talk about the topics that I'm not as smart on, right? And today we have just that for you. Today we're going to be diving into how you can find the right job for you in today's world. We're going to talk about how you can find the right job for you. We're going to talk about how you can excel while you're in that job, because the world as we know it has changed. And to help talk about this topic, we have brought in an expert. His name is Oscar Armas-Luy. And for those who don't know Oscar is a dedicated entrepreneur and business development professional with a passion for the intersection between data, technology, and solution-based selling. So we got a pretty similar background there. Oscar has built a career helping technology sales organizations combine the science and the arts of selling to exceed targets and achieve hockey stick growth. Oscar has his undergraduate degree in finance, and he is currently wrapping up his MBA in innovation management at Temple University. That's awesome. Oscar is currently a director of sales operations at Phenom People, and their mission is to help 1 billion people find the right job. He works with clients such as Southwest Airlines, Hilton, and Kohl to help them recruit and retain the top talent. But outside of work, Oscar has a passion for supporting the community and local education. He's a member of the executive board for the Rotary Club of Philadelphia, where he's at right now, which has written grants to over 50 Philadelphia nonprofits. Oscar, what an intro, brother. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So there's so many things we could have talked about, and I definitely want to bring you back on in the future to talk about things such as finance and sales and all these other areas. But right now, I mean, this is what you do every day. You know that we're facing a giant problem in today's world, right? People are looking for jobs. People don't have to work like they used to, right? Because a lot of people are getting government assistance. And honestly, man, there's a lot of ways this could go politically. We could talk about this and that. But honestly, man, like, I don't blame some of the people, right? Why go to a job where you're going to just be doing mechanical tasks that aren't really utilizing your strengths in order to make $15 an hour for someone who might not even care about you, for working with a culture that's not even a strong culture? So the question really comes down to, man, a lot of people are looking for jobs. What goes into someone finding the right job for them in today's climate, in today's world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I want to start with a quote I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, that Jeff Bezos had, that he got a lot of flack for, that I think was a little unfair. So Jeff Bezos talks about how work-life balance shouldn't be a trade-off, and how you should be integrating your work and your personal life together. And of course, coming from him, that sounds a little scary, right? People were naturally wary of it, but that is what I think the key is, right? And the way I look at it is, work is not a chore, right? It's not something that you're saying, I have to do it, let me pick the lesser of all evils. I think when you get into that attitude, that takes you the wrong way, right? You're going to find the wrong job for the wrong reasons. Finding the right job is about figuring out the lifestyle that you want to live, what motivates you, what energizes you, and then finding something that fits into that. Now, I don't believe that what they say, that if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life, because no matter how much you love it, there's always going to be tough days, right? But when you pick a job, you should find something that supports your lifestyle, not something that you have to trade off for.
Wow. No, I absolutely love that. And I talk to people all the time about, you meet a lot of people and they don't really know what they want, right? You ask most people, what is it that you want? They have no clarity about what's next for them. They have no clarity about what 5 years from now looks like, 10 years. A lot of people don't even really know what the ideal lifestyle looks like, right? Like,
yeah,
those listening right now, like, think about that. What does your ideal lifestyle look like? What does a perfect day for you look like? I mean, are these similar things as to what you help guide people through?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, for me, when I start, right, I'll give a really easy example that gets people into the right mindset. So whenever somebody comes to me for career advice or they need help finding a job, I tell them, well, do you like waking up early, right? Because whether you like waking up early or not is really going to control what type of careers will support your lifestyle, right? So, for example, I could never work a construction career because I can't be waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning. That's just not the lifestyle I want to live, right? Um, Another basic question nowadays that's so important is, are you energized around people, right? And I'll dig into that one for a second. So now that we've all been working from home, or most of us have been working from home, we've seen that it's very possible for a lot of jobs. The problem that we have is that the narrative is changing, where a lot of executives are saying that we need to be back in the office because we are missing out from that in-person interaction. The problem that I see with that is that in general, a lot of executives are extroverts. And so for them, being in an office, being around people is energizing. But that's not the case for everybody, right? Some people, that's a very draining proposition, right? Some people are energized when they're on their own. So the next question I like to ask people is, well, are you energized around people or are you drained around people, right? Because if you're energized, then we can start looking at careers that are working with customers hands-on, careers that are in person, careers that require you being in the office. But if you're not, that's when remote work becomes a really nice opportunity for you to do your best work.
Yeah, those are powerful questions. How early are you willing to rise? And are you energized around people or are you drained around people, which might lead you to working in a remote environment? And, it's funny you say that because I wanted to talk about remote working and the direction in which you can see things going, just, based on what you do, based on your opinion of things. I feel that, I became a lot more remote during the pandemic. Like, I was a trainer of a lot of salespeople, a team of over 60 salespeople. And I used to travel we're pretty close by. So I used to travel from Albany in upstate New York all the way over to Buffalo in upstate New York, which is a 5-hour trip. And I'd go from there. I'd go down to Mansfield, Pennsylvania at times. I'd go from there all the way north to the North Country. Like, I would be traveling everywhere, but I found a lot of joy in being able to work remotely. And I like being around people. I'm extroverted when necessary. I feel like I can play the role, and depending on the situation I'm in. But I really liked the ability to have a conversation with someone in Buffalo and then have a conversation with someone in Albany within 10 minutes of each other without having to be there. So what are you seeing in terms of the trend of remote work? Are more companies doing this? Are more people seeking this? Like, where do you see this going?
Yeah, I absolutely think more people are going to be seeking this, and I think it will be hard to put back in the bag. And I think it's pretty interesting because a lot of times the discourse has come to sort of, should you be in the office or not? But I think the more powerful thing is that we've realized that remote work has given sort of the common worker more control over their time than they've ever had before, right? And I go back to this divide between sort of executive management and sort of the faculty and staff, which is, right, executives are used to having control over their time, right? If I'm the CEO of a company or the CFO of a company and I can't make a meeting, everybody else will rearrange for me, right? Everybody will move it around. They'll meet when I want to meet. So whether they're in the office or not, an executive has a lot of control over his or her time. But for us common folk, right, being at home, being able to multitask, being able to not have to take an hour commute every day, being able to plan our schedule, integrate with what we need to do around the house, whether we need to be here to pick up a delivery or something, it's given us a lot more control over our time. And I think that's what's powerful, right? People aren't necessarily dreading sitting in an office. They're dreading having an employer exercise the amount of control over their time that they have in the past. So to answer your question, what does that actually mean? So I think hybrid is going to be the trend that's never going to go away, right? Because people are going to retain that control, but they're still going to have an office to go to, right? And people like going to the office for many reasons. Some people, they have kids at home. Some people, they don't work well at home. They get distracted. Some people just want the interaction of being with their coworkers, being with their team. And that's all right. Right. So I think hybrid is really where we're going to go. And this is something that organizations are going to have to embrace, or they're going to start losing their talent.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And I think many of them are pivoting in that way, which is very nice. But I mean, the others are going to have to. Otherwise, everyone who's looking for these jobs very soon here, whenever this unemployment does go away, with whatever that looks like, right? they're going to be looking for opportunities like that, especially parents who've been home with their kids during this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different world now, man. It's a different world. So I want to revisit now those questions that we were just talking about, right? So how early can you rise? Are you energized around people? So that gives a good idea of maybe what area or industry someone should go in, right? But I feel that this whole, like, I haven't had to search for a job since I was 18 years old, right? It's been a long time for me. And now I'm operating my own business while still working with a company I've been with for years. When you're working with someone, let's say we've got Joe, right? And Joe says, "Hey, Oscar, I want to find a great job." And I know you work with specific companies, but let's say you didn't. Let's say you worked with many different companies, all right? Joe says, "I'm looking for a job." You ask him those questions. You find out that he likes the idea of hybrid. He likes people, but he would like to work remote every now and then. He doesn't mind waking up early. Like, what's the process you lead people down to find the job that is right for them?
Yeah. So once you've determined what your lifestyle is that you're looking for, then it's time to get educated, right? Figure out what are the industries, what are the careers that support that type of lifestyle. You can do that a couple of ways. The easiest way is to watch day in the life videos on YouTube. You can type in pretty much any job, and people have done dozens of day in the life videos. For example, I realized I did not want to be an investment banker after watching a bunch of videos on YouTube. You can, so that's the easiest way, right? You can talk to people, ask questions, you can read blogs online, you can read industry forums. There's a lot of forums where people talk about what they do. And so you want to make your short list to the careers that support that lifestyle, right? Once you've done that, then it becomes a numbers game, meaning recruiting and how people hire is such a crapshoot for lots of different reasons that you could be the best candidate in the world and you still have to apply to 100, 200 roles, right?
Wow.
It's a numbers game. You got to get that volume up. So, you do all your classic stuff. You hone your resume. You make your short list. An easy way to increase the efficiency of where you're applying is apply to roles that have been posted like 1 or 2 days ago. Because usually that's the prime window where they'll review your resume. And so just get your numbers up and get applying. Of course, you want to use your network. If you have someone that can give you a referral, that would be great. What I do not recommend is there's been this growing trend, especially in tech, where people have been selling referrals. I never recommend that people use those because they're likely to backfire. But once you've got your numbers game, once you've got your applications in, then you say, okay, out of the interviews you get out of the stuff, how do you narrow it down? Then it becomes all about the culture fit, right? Is the company offering the growth you're looking for? Do you feel like you'll fit in with the culture? Does the company seem like they'll take care of their employees, right? All that sort of stuff. But the very high level thing to remember is you have to get volume and it has to be a two-way fit, right? Do not feel like they're doing you a favor by hiring you. You're doing them a favor by working for them.
Especially right now, for sure. A lot of people are looking for people. Those are really valuable tips, and I definitely, I don't want to skirt by them. I think it's important to talk about them. First of all, I never knew day in the life videos existed, probably because I never searched for them. So that's really interesting. I mean, that's probably some entertainment value in that too, right? Yeah. The numbers game idea. A lot of people will apply for 1 or 2 places, even 5 places, and they'll be like, oh, I tried. I really did. I've been applying to places. And it's like, well, how many places did you apply to? And they're like, well, 2 or 3. And so you're saying that, was that 100 to 200 like just a number you created, or is that like what is necessary in order to find the right place?
It's a realistic number because when you apply to 1 or 200 jobs, that will give you some options further down the recruiting cycle. You do not want to be in a case where you are only interviewing at one place for a couple of reasons. One, because if that place gives you an offer, you'll feel very compelled to accept it, whether or not it's the right job, right company for you. Number 2, when you have multiple recruiting cycles going on at once, you start to sort of develop your practice of interviewing. So once you've done 8 or 10 different interviews, the next one you do is going to be that much better, right? You've seen the questions before, you've gotten used to answering them. Some of the jitters have gone away. So that helps you sort of equip to better perform in your interviews.
That is, yeah, no, I absolutely love how you said that. It just gives you the experience of interviewing, because how often are you really interviewing or being interviewed, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, when it comes to what you do, and then I have some follow-up questions to this. How exactly do you help people to find the right job for them? What does your role look like? And we'll start there. What does your role look like? What do you do?
Yeah, great question. So, I formed sort of this niche as a blogger and sort of here in the community where I have a passion for helping young people find good careers. I think that getting the right education and getting the right careers is so important, because when you're in the right career, it becomes that much easier to build the life that you're looking for, right? And the life that you're looking for can be anything, right? So some people tell me, I want a lot of money. That's fine, great, but you have to find a career that pays a lot, right? Or you have to start a business that you think will make a lot. Other people will tell me, I'm really passionate about my church, and I want to stay involved in my church. And I'll say, okay, great, but you have to find a company and a career that has flexibility in your hours so that you can do that, right? There's no good or bad. So that's sort of my passion, because I've met so many people that are so dissatisfied in their lives that have not been lucky enough to find a career that really energizes them. And I feel like it's sad, because we all have the ability to find great careers, especially in the US, in a place like this where careers are everywhere, right? But to answer your question more directly, so what that led me down a path where I was really looking for a new opportunity in the software industry, and I found Phenom. And Phenom's mission resonated so much with me, which is to help 1 billion people find the right job. And the way we do that is through our candidate relationship management software, which we sell to large companies, to talent acquisition agencies, because the way I see it, when those companies are equipped to really understand their roles, to understand their talent, and to attract the right talent for their roles, it makes it that much easier for us as job seekers, right? When the job comes to me and the job knows that I'm a good fit for the role, that I have the right qualifications, the right skills, the right experience, then they've done half the work for me, right?
Yeah. Cool. And what lights you up about what you do? Like, why do you wake up each day saying, I want to help young people find a career that's right for them? Like, out of everything that you could be doing, why are you doing this?
I think it's a great question. So I think it's just because I can see the ripple effects. When people are in the right career, they're happier, they're less stressed, they have more income, which means they're able to do more for others, right? When you're not stressed about your job, you're able to be more present with your family, you're able to be more present for your kids. When you have additional income, you're able to contribute to causes that are meaningful to you. And so I think, it's one little pebble where if you're in the right career, it ripples out to what you're able to do. So for example, for me, if I was not at Phenom, I would not be able to have the flexibility to be on the board for the Rotary Foundation, right? Which is something that's really meaningful to me. And so it's just that ripple effect, and you can never really foresee how much impact the right job will have on an entire community.
The Rotary Foundation that you work with, is that like, so I'm ignorant when it comes to this, is that related to like the local Rotary clubs in many of the main areas, or is it different?
Yeah, so they're related but different. So the Rotary Club of Philadelphia, which I'm a member of, is one of the oldest Rotary clubs in the country, and it's a service organization that does a lot of volunteer projects, a lot of social good. For example, in a couple of weeks, we'll be cleaning up a park here in Philadelphia.
Cool.
And what has happened is, as members have gone on through the club, members have passed away, people have bequeathed sums of money to the club. And so, rather than sort of hoard that money for us, what we do is we've actually started a foundation out of those donations. and we basically invest the money, and then every year we donate the appreciation, the investment returns to other nonprofits in the area. So it's a separate organization, unrelated, but it's just been supported for so long by the members and by their generous donations that it's all part of the same family. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. I know some people in the Rotary clubs, and they love being a part of the club, and many have been part of the clubs for years and years. So I respect you, and I commend you for what you're doing with them, and I also respect and acknowledge what you're doing professionally, helping people to find the right career. Because like you said, like, I don't remember a time when I was struggling financially where I said to my wife, hey, let's adopt a family for Christmas, right? Hey,
Yeah.
let's give in this way. Let's donate to like the animal shelter. Like, those thoughts weren't even in mind, because I was just thinking about me. I was just thinking about where the next paycheck was going to come from. So helping other people get over that, helping other people get into a place where they're feeling secure, they're feeling like they're in a place that allows them to use their purpose. It's extremely meaningful work. So I acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, and it's also about taking people out of sort of a victim mentality. So I think many people think that, they're at the mercy of their company, that anybody, they'd be lucky if anybody hired them, if anybody looked at them. Well, that's actually not true, right? If you do the right things, if you put the work in, if you put the numbers in, you will have many, many options at your disposal. And when you can get people to make that switch, then people feel a lot more empowered to have control over their life and their situation. And that's another one where when you're waking up every morning not fearing losing your job, not fearing what your boss is going to do to you, that completely changes your outlook on things.
Totally. It changes the way that you move, changes the way that you walk, your feelings when you're going to sleep, what you're thinking about. Absolutely. So let's talk about that. So that insecurity of, they're not going to want me, they're not going to want to talk to me, I'm not a fit for anywhere. Like you just said, well, you combat that with the numbers game. When you're dealing and working with people who are looking for the next great opportunity, right? The next step in their career, what are the common traits of the people who do find exactly what they're looking for? What are the commonalities between those people that we can adopt?
Yeah, so I think the most important one is you have to numb yourself to rejection. What do I mean by that? I mean that you have to get to a point where a rejection doesn't faze you. And what we can do is there's a technique that's very popular in sales called go for no. What that means is, and you probably do a little bit of this as well, right? So if you're a salesperson and you're making calls and you're knocking on doors, you're not saying, I need to get 10 sales today. What you're saying is, I need to get 200 no's.
Wow.
Right? And so what that does is it's very powerful, right? Because you're working towards your 200 no's, right? You're reframing the rejection in a positive light, like that's your goal for the day. But when you're talking those numbers, right, some of those aren't going to be no's, they're going to be yeses, and you're going to get the sales, right? You're going to enjoy the sale, but you're also not going to be fazed with the no, because that's what you're planning for the day. You wake up, you're going to get 200 no's today, right? Whether you have a great day, a terrible day, you're going to get 200 no's. So they start not to bother you as much. And so how we apply that to job seekers is you're going to get a lot of rejections. You're going to get a lot of automated emails. You're going to get a lot of people that tell you it's not a good fit. That's fine. You can go for no. You could say, I'm going for 15 rejections a day. I'm going for 10 rejections a day. And they won't faze you as much.
I love that. It's a complete change of focus. It makes it, when you hear a no, you almost get excited to hear no.
Exactly.
Because when there's that feeling of, well, they might still want me, I haven't heard back from them yet. Like, it's almost like a desperate, hopeful feeling. But when you're told no, at least there's certainty that you can now move on. It's like a relationship where both sides aren't really sure if they want to be together, right? At least when someone says, I don't want you anymore, it might hurt, but at least it's not like you're not wondering, okay, well, maybe they still want me. No, they told you they didn't. That's a very interesting philosophy. And on that same line there, okay, so if they go for no, is there anything what's the one thing that we can do when searching for the right job, the next step in our career, that will set us apart from the other 5,000 people or more who are going for the same exact opening that you are?
Yeah. So I'll give you something very strategic, which is um, when you're going for a step up in your career, it's not about how good at your job you are, right? Because everybody has to be good at their job, especially when you're looking for more senior roles or for more sort of popular companies. Um, it becomes a lot less about whether you're good at your job and a lot more about your brand and your presence and whether people can see you in the role. So don't get me wrong, you have to be good at your job because if you're not, nobody's going to bother to look at your presence. But once you've established the skill set, right, the experience, the education, then it becomes more about crafting that image.
Wow.
So what you want to do is you want to find other people that have had similar roles at similar companies or even at the company that you're interviewing with, and you have to see what kind of brand do they have, right? For example, the brand that an investment banking vice president is going to be very different than the brand for the creative director at a media agency, right? And so what you want to do is you want to figure out, okay, from their brand, from their image, what do I need to sort of develop and as I cultivate my own personal brand to show that I can really excel in this role, that I can really sort of fit the mold, right? And so I think the main takeaway is spend a lot of time crafting your brand and being very intentional about it. The easiest way to be intentional about your brand is with your social media. So your social media is a very powerful tool to show people who you are. And I'll even go back to the day in the life videos. So one of the really powerful things about watching those is you start to learn the lingo of the trade. And so when you can put that in a tweet, when you can put that in a LinkedIn post, people say, "Oh, this guy, this person they really look like the executive. I could hear them on stage. I could hear them on a podcast. I could hear them on a webcast." So it's all about creating that brand. And the second thing that I'll say is the other really powerful way to build your brand is the way that you dress. So dress to match the role you want, dress to match the culture of the company, because subconsciously, when you dress like the role that you want, people will be able to see you in it.
Wow. Okay, there's so much to unpack there. And a lot of people might be listening to this and they're like, "Oh, but Oscar, I'm not a content creator. Oscar, I'm not a business owner." Like Gary Vee talks about, like, and people are now wondering, okay, well, how can I craft this brand? How can I put out content? Should I do a video? Should I do a post? Like, go talk to people like Gary Vee, right? Listen to one of his thousands of videos where he's like, document your life, like document about you, document the challenges that you're facing. I just read someone post on LinkedIn the other day. They're like, if you're sitting around for hours about what to write in a post, make it easy for yourself and write about something that happened to you today, what you learned from it and what you'll do moving forward so that we can learn from your own experience. Because let me ask you, and it's an obvious rhetorical question, but I think it's important to hear from you because you work in this space. Are potential employers looking through someone's social media pages? Like, are they digging into those different things to get an idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two camps here, right? Some people will just look at them. Some people will look at them as a curiosity. For example, when I hire people, I tend to check out their Twitter, their LinkedIn. Well, their LinkedIn's a given. We'll take away LinkedIn for a second. I'll check out their Twitter. I'll see if they have an Instagram. I'll just put their name in just to see what they're doing, right? So, for example, I once interviewed a candidate that had a really successful fitness Instagram with like 80 or 100,000 followers. And it wasn't anything shady. I just thought that was curious. I said, "Oh, wow, you have this great Instagram." And they were really excited to talk to me about it, right? So that's the one camp, the people that will look at it as a curiosity. You don't really have to worry about them because unless if you're building a brand, if you're focused on what you're doing, it can only help you.
Yes.
The ones that you have to worry about is some companies use automated systems to scan your social media. And so, for example, there's a couple of companies that that basically will scan your public Twitter account and will make judgments on you based on what you've posted, what you've retweeted, and what you've liked.
What
So
you've
those,
liked, even things you've
yeah,
liked.
yeah. And so you can even,
Wow.
I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to promote these companies, but if you
Yeah.
look up what I'm saying, you'll be able to find examples of the reports that people have received. And these you have to worry about, right? Because I don't know about you, but I've liked a lot of stuff on Twitter that is not a reflection of me at all. It's like something that I thought was interesting or whatever, but those algorithms will weigh it against you. So to summarize, right, craft your social media in a way that a person that's reading it can really see who you are, see your brand, see what it's like. But also, be cognizant that if you have a Twitter, if you have things like this, there's also going to be computers that are reading them. And so, for example, this is a controversial piece of advice. I have completely locked down my Twitter for that reason, because I actually think it does more harm than good when you have an algorithm reading it than if you have an individual reading it. But I tend to focus more on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Medium, if you can call that a social media as well.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say you locked down your Twitter, you just made it private. You didn't like delete it.
No, I made it private. Yeah.
Okay, just so you can avoid that whole thing. Because I mean, the reality is, like, while we're not all out there posting videos of us getting drunk on the weekend, like, some of us do follow certain things that an algorithm might not like, right? Especially in
Yeah.
the political sense of things. And I think tons of knowledge bombs were just dropped here. And I think it's important to say, to summarize everything we just talked about, craft your social media in a way that puts you in the light of how you want to be seen, right? While it's still being authentically you, these companies you're applying to, what do they want to see? Like, they want to see a complete LinkedIn profile. They want to see profile pictures. They want to see a description. They want to see some content, not every day, 3 times a day, just some content to get an idea. Because if you're perfectly qualified, even more qualified than someone else, but the other person has a stronger brand, they've really put themselves out there and they're more visible, it's a lot safer of a choice to pick the person who's been talking about similar values for the last 5 years than the person who doesn't have a LinkedIn account in general.
Absolutely. And I'll stop on the LinkedIn point. You want to make sure that your LinkedIn is well optimized. That's sort of table stakes at this point. So you want to make sure it's complete. You filled it out. You've included the keywords for the jobs that you're looking for. You've included skills. You want to ask your friends, your colleagues for recommendations on LinkedIn. You want to sort of create the complete picture, because what happens is a lot of recruiters are using LinkedIn's recruiting tools to find candidates. And when your profile is complete, you're able to come up in more defined queries that the recruiters are going to make. And ultimately, you're going to have people reaching out to you. So one thing I'll say is, if you're in a profession that's in high demand and you don't have a recruiter reaching out to you a couple times a month, your LinkedIn is not well optimized. Right?
Wow.
Either need to add more or you need to put the right keywords. But you got to do something, because LinkedIn is a very powerful tool.
Okay, I love that. Let me ask you this. Are you working with people who do you do a lot of work with people who are looking for more senior roles in organizations, as well as those who are entering in middle managers? Are you working with like the top echelon of businesses as well?
Yeah, so I don't do too much executive work. So a lot of the advice that I'm giving you falls away when you're looking for a C-suite role.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I saw a statistic the other day in a report that only like 18 or 20% of C-suite officers in the Fortune 500 have LinkedIn accounts.
Wow.
So if you're looking to be the CEO of like a Procter and Gamble or something, or even like an SVP, the advice I'm giving you is not very good, right? If you're looking for a role like that, you want to work with a really seasoned executive recruiter that has the network, that understands the back channels, that understands the jobs that aren't posted and all of that sort of thing. Now, if you're a young person looking for your first management role, or you're a manager looking to go up to a VP level, or even an executive director level, that's when this advice is really powerful, right? Because those jobs are senior enough that they're really looking for a candidate that's vetted with a strong brand, a strong track record, but not so senior that you have to enter sort of this dark cloud of executive recruiting where it's no job is the same. Does that make sense?
It does. And I ask because let's say you have someone who's been with a company for 10 years and they've gotten to the point with this company into senior leadership as far as they really want to go. They can't see themselves taking it any further. They feel like they've capped out. They're in their late 20s, early 30s. Even age doesn't really matter here, right? And now they're saying, I want another opportunity that's going to give me more opportunities for growth. That's going to help. Because, I mean, what makes us happy? Growth makes us happy. Continuing to make progress. Maybe that's earning more money. Maybe it's more life balance, whatever it might be. They want more growth. Is there any other advice you'd have for people who are with a company who want to make the step to a different company so that they can continue that trajectory and growth?
Yeah, so there's two ways. So if you're at a small or medium-sized company, you want to find the same role at the same level at a large company, right?
Wow.
If you do that, you are going to grow exponentially because you will have naturally. So I'm to be very clear here, the same role at the same level at a larger company is actually going to have a lower span of control. Why? Because it's a larger company, so therefore they have a more developed hierarchy. They have more developed sort of controls, checks and balances. But that's okay because you're going to have a smaller span of control, but you're going to have exponentially more resources to support you. And what that means is that's actually going to increase your impact, and it's also going to let you experience things at a much higher level than you have before, right? So if you're at a medium or a small company, look for the same role, same level at a larger company, right? If you are at a large company, look for the same role at a similar or above level at a smaller or mid-sized company. Why do I say similar or above? Because a lot of large companies have titles that don't exist at smaller companies. So if your title doesn't exist, just find something similar or above, right? So what's going to happen here is your span of control is going to expand because it's the opposite, right? It's a smaller company, but you're not going to have the same support infrastructure. So what that means is that's going to give you an opportunity to establish what those policies, processes, and support infrastructure should look like. So you get to go from somebody that's sort of worked in a large, well-developed place to really getting to build something from the ground up, right? So that's how I would advise. If what you're looking for is growth, if you've capped out, one of those two paths will keep you busy for at least a decade.
Oh, that's excellent advice. At a small, medium-sized company, look for the same or similar role at an even larger company to expand impact, expand opportunity. Now, for the person who's in, like, let's say they're like a training director, right? Would you recommend that if they're at a small or mid-sized company, would you recommend they just go on LinkedIn, go to jobs, and just type in training director and look through the different job offers? Is that what you'd recommend, or is there an even better way that's lesser known?
Yeah, so the number one thing you want to do is set an alert on LinkedIn, right? Because whenever you go on job sites, a lot of those jobs are stale, meaning they've been up for a couple weeks or a couple days. You want to apply for the job right when it's posted, so a day or two. So if you set an alert on LinkedIn and an alert on Indeed, you will get an email every morning, and that's just part of your morning routine. So you look at the jobs that were posted that day or previous day, and you just submit your applications, and that will improve your results.
Oscar, we're really digging in here, man. This is like higher level stuff, entry level stuff, optimization, brand. I hope everyone listening is like taking notes because I've got literally half of a page of notes here already from this. And we haven't even like touched on, okay, now we're there at the place we want to be. What can we do? So we're not going to be able to get too much into that. But what I do want to ask you is, you talk a lot about organizational politics. And this is something not a lot of people want to talk about. And I remember, especially in training leaders in the company that I was with, I would train a team of 7 to 10 leaders at a time. We'd be together for 6 months and we'd get a new team and they'd be promoted or they would go back through the program. A lot of people, and I couldn't say to them, listen, this is a game. You need to know how to play the game. I couldn't really, I did say it that way, but I treaded lightly because you've got to be careful the way you talk about it. But some people didn't like that idea. They thought, well, I'm great at what I do. It shouldn't be a game of politics. People call it the boys club or whatever it might be, right? The club that you've got to be friends with the people in there to get in there. So obviously there's a layer of politics in any organization. So when you say organizational politics, what does that look like? And how can we best equip ourselves for the reality of that?
Yeah, so the most important thing is do not dread or do not fear politics, because politics are all around us, whether we call it that or not. So for people that are apprehensive, right? Some people just want to do the work. Some people, they don't want to get involved. Some people are afraid that they're going to end up on the wrong side of things. Here's what I would say to you. There's a much simpler way to look at it, which is the most powerful hedge in your career is being nice. So if we dig into that a little bit, what does that actually mean? It means you can be the best at your job, right? You can be the number one in the world, in your company, in your state. And you can also be a jerk, right? If you're the best, people will put up with you, right? In general, if you're a jerk, as long as you're performing, people will look past it. What happens though? The minute you mess up, the minute you slip up, the minute you have an off day, you stop performing, the economy gets bad and you get, it impacts you. Nobody's going to watch your back because they're going to say, well, this guy's not performing anymore. He's also a jerk. Forget about him, right? Or forget about her, right? People aren't going to have your back, right? When you're nice, whether you're the best at your job, or whether you're just sort of average, slightly above average, when you're nice, it's a hedge because you're always going to have an off day. You're always going to mess up. You're always going to need help one day. Something out of your control is going to happen. But when you're nice, people will go above and beyond to help you, and they will look past it, right? They will stick with you. They will watch your back. So if you don't want to get involved in politics, just remember being nice to everyone is sort of the best hedge, especially if that other person's a jerk, right? If you have a jerk, being nice to them is a hedge, right? Because what that means is, so there's two sides to it, right? So there's the being nice in that when you slip up, people will help you, people will sort of have your back. But when you're nice to somebody that's a jerk, you avoid becoming their target, right? Because nobody wants to be seen as picking on the nice guy or the nice gal in the office, right? No matter who they are. So I would say that's the big thing to remember, especially for people that feel scared or that they don't want to get involved.
I think it goes back to what you talked about earlier. Are you someone who energizes other people, or are you somebody who drains other people just by being in their presence, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people are going to hear what you just said and be like, oh, well, I don't want to be fake to people, right? And the thing is, like, you don't have to kiss someone's ass. You don't have to butter them up. You just have to be of service to people, right? Just be looking to help people. Help other people with a sale that they're doing. Help other people by answering a question and not sounding irritated or inconvenienced when they ask you a question. Just being like, yeah, well, how can I help you, man? What can I do for you? Just being there, being available, being of service, just being a good human being, right?
Absolutely. And it's about, so if you want to avoid feeling like you're fake, then you have to be present, right? So the most powerful thing you can do is to really pay attention to somebody, because when you do, you won't be fake, because you will actually pick up on the nuances of what that person is saying to you, what they really mean, what they're feeling. And it's a really powerful thing, right? It's when you really closely pay attention to the person you're talking to, the person you're engaging with, you won't be fake, because you will actually become interested in what's going on with them, what their situation is, what they're struggling with. And that's what drives that really genuine kindness.
Yes, I love that. And something that I've had to combat in my own life when it comes to that is, even when I'm talking with people like you, just avoiding the temptation of thinking about my response before the other person's even finished talking, because then you're not focused on them. You're not being present. You're thinking about your own thoughts and you're thinking about you, and you didn't even hear what they said. You're just waiting for them to finish so that you can say what you want to say or ask the question that you want to ask.
Absolutely. And I'll give a quick tip. For people, some people are more introverted. Some people say, "Oh, I have a hard time picking up what people are saying." A really quick tip is the most honest body part is the feet, right?
Wow.
So this is a strange thing, but it works. You can look it up. There's a lot of research. If you ever feel like you don't have trouble, if you ever feel like you have trouble picking up subtext, usually when people shift their feet, that means something. So if you're ever standing in a group and somebody has their feet pointing out of the group, that means they probably want to leave. If somebody has their feet pointed straight at you when they're talking to you, they're probably really engaged in what you're saying. So you just learn little tricks like that. And now, granted, some people are very natural. Some people can read you perfectly. Others can't. So you got to pick up those little tricks.
I love that. I never usually like look down and pay attention to that sort of thing. I'm usually looking at their face or their body language, but I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start looking at their feet. I've heard that when their feet are like pointed away, they're trying to get the hell out of there, but I've never consciously thought to look down at them. So I'm going to take you up on that. And I'm going to try that. I have to ask you this because we're almost out of time here and I want to respect your time, but I wanted to ask you this question. When you're a leader, all right, so we find the job, we're excelling in the job, we understand the organizational politics, but now we've confronted the issue of I'm 25 or even I'm 20, right? And I'm leading a team where there's people who are in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s. And I'll recommend something and I get kickback because I don't have the experience that these other individuals have. When you're a young gun, or even when you're just leading people who are older than you, different generations, what would you say is the top advice you would give to those leaders?
Yeah, so there's two sides to it. There's the internal and the external. So the internal is don't be insecure about it because that carries over into your behaviors and in the way you talk to people, right? Insecurity is something that infects everything that you do. Right? Easier said than done. How do you practically do that? So the thing that's most powerful for me is always look for golden opportunities. So in a company that I worked with a lot of people in their 50s when I was 22, right? And so one thing that really bothered me or made me uncomfortable was that a lot of people would make jokes or references to movies from the 70s and 80s that I had never seen or never even heard of before, right? And so I felt like the odd one out, and that really got to me. But I started to say, how can I turn this into a golden opportunity? What I realized is older folks really love talking about things that happened a long time ago. And so what would happen is anytime somebody would mention a movie to me that I hadn't seen, I would say, "Oh, you know what? Like, I've always wanted to see that one, or that one's on my list. Can you tell me what happens in it, or is it any good?" Or I would say something along those lines, and you would see people light up because they love to talk about it. And I've suddenly turned something that made me an outsider to an opportunity for sort of establishing closeness and a bond with that individual. So the generic advice is figure out why specifically you are insecure in your role and figure out how to turn that into a golden opportunity, right? And insecurity is never just, I'm insecure because I'm young. It's never that. It's always a deeper thing, right? You have to look past it. Go ahead.
No, I think, and I would even say there too, I think a big part of what you just said is you're talking about what's important to them. And I think in any form of influence, it can't just be what you want. You've got to also think about what that person wants or what that person finds interesting. And even what I've done too in the past when I worked with older people, and some of the best relationships I formed are with those people who are from an older generation because they have different ways of looking at things, just like we have different ways of looking at things. And I would even ask, hey, listen, I'm a little newer at this. How would you handle something like this? What would you do in this situation? And they're going to light up when you ask them that question.
Absolutely. So I think that's great advice. And then on the external side of it, right, which is really building your brand, I would say for your brand, just do whatever you can to avoid the millennial stereotypes, right? A lot of people have them. They're unfair, but a lot of people have them. So do what you can to avoid them, right?
Got it. Yeah, and when we have more time, we can dig into like what those specifically are, because there's so many other things I want to talk to you about. But I want to respect your time, and I want to ask you, where can people find you after this conversation today?
Yeah, so you can look me up. If you type my name into Google, you'll see my Medium profile will come up. I blog there pretty regularly. You can feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I answer my LinkedIn messages pretty quickly. If anybody ever has a question or they need something, I am happy to help.
Very nice. So I'm going to include links in the description, guys, or you can, like Oscar said, you can type in Oscar Armas-Luy into the Google search bar. You'll find his profiles that way. And I guess my final question for you is, before we talk about Smash, what's the change that you want to see in the world? What's the positive difference that you want to personally make here?
The positive difference, I just want to empower people to do what they want to do, right? I don't pass judgment. I don't care what your passion is, what you want to do. The impact that you want to make in the world, my job is to help you get there.
Wow. Super cool, man. Leading other leaders, helping other people make a difference through your own example. Super impressive, everything you've done. You're such a young guy. I can't wait to see what you accomplish in the next year, 5 years. I respect you, man, and I commend you, and I look forward to learning about you more and hearing about your story more. And I know that you're working on something as an executive co-producer, Smash. Tell us about Smash and what we can expect there.
Yeah, so this is a passion project for me. So Smash is a short film that I got involved with that sort of talks about a home shopping network host that sort of has a meltdown on air, and discovers that when she's able to really experience true authenticity with her audience and with her customers, she's able to really excel at her role, right? And so if you've been listening to this interview here, you could see why that would totally align with what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about. And so it's a project that I'm really excited about. I'm actually going to hop on a plane after this and go get involved, go on set. We're actually shooting this week.
Cool.
So that's a project, and it's a crew that's 90% women filmmakers.
Wow.
To support diversity in the media. So really excited about it. If you put it into Google, you can follow along with the project, and hopefully by the time you see this, we will have something to show you.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm going to include a link in the description, guys, to that so you can follow along with the progress of Smash. Super excited for you, Oscar. You're working on a lot of different things. You're making a big impact, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to speak with you, my friend. So thank you very much for joining us and shedding all these knowledge bombs.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Oscar. What an awesome conversation with Oscar Armas-Luy, talking about finding the right job for you, talking about how you can excel at that job, talking about how you can optimize your own brand so that you can find even more opportunities, how to lead people from different generations. This conversation went in a lot of different awesome directions. A lot of individual bombs of knowledge were dropped here. Hopefully you took notes. Rewatch this several times. There's so many different things that you can act on from this conversation. And again, there will be links to follow Oscar in the description here on his LinkedIn, on his blog with Smash, what he's working on. So many great things. So you always ask, how can you support the broadcast? The number one way to support the Be Better broadcast is to share this show with one person who could use this information, one person who could find value from these conversations that we have and from all the other content that we post each week. Share it with one friend. That's the price of admission. No ads, no sponsorships, nothing. Just share it. And we appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching every single week. And I look forward to talking with you again. But until then, continue to be better.